I see lots of familiar faces, some new faces. Hi, Sue. Hi, Jordan. Hi, Angela. Everybody, we are going to wait only 2 minutes because we do want to respect everybody's time, but we did have almost 30 people register for tonight's chat, so we're going to give people just 2 more minutes to hop in, and then we will start promptly. So thank you everyone for being here on time. We are all really looking forward to tonight's interview with Maddison and Rachael, and I'm excited to get going. So just a couple more minutes and we'll start. Everyone looks so good.
I just got off a brutal workout, so I really look good.
Oh, that's commitment right there, Jordan. That's commitment.
I got off a brutal workout too.
The only thing that saved me was the fact that we did this. I said I got to be done by 6:30. So okay.
Yeah.
Love the commitment. That's awesome. And I just saw Lua. Hi, Lua.
All right, I'm going to get started because, like I said, I do want to respect everybody's time. So everybody, welcome to Fashion Group International Toronto's interview series. I'm Dee Silky. I'm a member of this year's FGI board, and I work on social media. And alongside of me is Hillary, who is an amazing FGI committee member. I cannot speak highly enough of Hillary. And in this week's interview, we are super excited to have Maddison Lynn interviewing 2017 Miss United States, Rachael Todd. And before we get into our riveting conversation here, I just wanted to keep you up with some housekeeping notes. So throughout the conversation, feel free to leave questions in the chat that myself or Hillary will read and just monitor. And at the end of Maddison and Rachael's chat, if you're comfortable unmuting yourself during the Q&A period, you can. And just use the little raise your hand feature in the Zoom to indicate that you have a question. Unmute and speak, and our presenters will answer you as best they can. And if you miss any key information, this Zoom call is being recorded. So we will be sharing this on our YouTube in the coming days. So you'll have access to that, or you can share it with friends. And we're excited to bring you these educational interviews, and we'll be having several more. So make sure that you're following FGI Toronto on Instagram and sign up to your newsletters, because that's how you'll be informed with all of our juicy interviews. So without further ado, I will introduce Maddison. Maddison is a fellow board meeting and a friend of mine. She is an aspiring fashion entrepreneur and international Vogue featured fashion model for runway work. While obtaining her Bachelor of Arts degree in psychology and sociology at Western, through an entrance scholarship, she developed a love for fashion. Her love for the industry grew to a whole new level after being scouted to compete for Miss Universe Canada pageant back in 2015. She placed as a top delegate in Canada on the national stage. And after that, Maddison went on to compete in many other pageants, finishing at the top of her competition. She also walked away with a title, which is a big deal. Maddison has also been invited to New York to walk in New York Fashion Week multiple times for designers from Los Angeles, Paris, New York, and Taiwan. Maddison continues to grow in the fashion industry, working with national and international brands. And recently, Maddison launched a consulting and education company called Maddison & Company, where she has been educating models to optimal success. Through Maddison's own research, she has developed strategies to help change a model's trajectory and improve their overall industry performance. She mentors models from avenues local, international, freelance, agency signed, etc. Maddison has the passion and drive to become a great principled, innovative leader in the fashion industry by applying the learned framework she learns within the industry and working abroad. Maddison was given the opportunity to study with Elle Education, where she learned firsthand from the world's top fashion CEOs and fashion leaders within the industry. The way that Maddison has been able to effectively apply her knowledge to the teachings of Elle Education has changed her career on so many levels. Recently, Maddison, there's so much here, you guys, it's so juicy. Recently, Maddison was appointed the title and the ambassador of Canada for Elle Education. Maddison hopes to bring more awareness, understanding, and education to the fashion industry in Canada to maximize high levels of education within the industry while working closely with Elle Education. Her goal is to become one of the future leaders of the fashion industry while inspiring others along her journey. Thank you for taking the time to be here, Maddison, and for bringing Rachael along for this interview.
The pleasure is all mine. Thank you for giving me this platform. Thank you for that lovely introduction. That was a long one, but I had to, there's so much, I couldn't leave anything out. But I wanted firstly to, thank you everybody for being here. We have an hour of wonderful, authentic, good information that I feel will be very, very beneficial for you if you're a model, if you're joining us, or even if you're joining us just to kind of understand the industry a little bit more. We're here to, answer those questions and to really give you a different view of what the industry is like. And I wanted to thank the FGI platform for giving the opportunity for us to do this. And I'm so excited to introduce Rachael. Rachael, if you want to kind of introduce yourself, give a background of who you are, where you started, how we came into each other's lives, and just, let's get the show on the road. Let's chat.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you also for having me. And Maddison, thank you for inviting me. Thank you for thinking of me to be a part of this. I now am, let's see, I'll start at the present and then I'll go backwards. I'm currently in Florida and married and have a little one who is about to be 1 year old this summer. I have an 11-year-old stepdaughter, and life is vastly different than it used to be. And I don't get these opportunities as often. So I'm really, really excited to be here with all of you. So thank you for having me. And thank you, FGI, for the opportunity and for creating this platform, because they certainly didn't have forums like this when I started out. Gosh, I was just talking to someone the other day and they said, well, how long have you been in the industry? And I said, well, hold on, let me do the math. Like 14 years. And I don't remember ever having access to information like this that would have been so helpful, because for a long time, it just felt like it was this secret, right? This like black book of information that you only really get once you're a seasoned industry model or you're in the know. And how is somebody supposed to figure this stuff out unless somebody tells them and teaches them? And so we hope tonight that this will bring you guys just some clarity and a sense of that everybody's human and we're all, in this together. You're navigating a new industry and there's really no reason to have pretenses and sort of feel like there's these untouchables. And we're really excited to bring that to you guys tonight. My journey began, small stages like hair shows and conventions in Orlando, Florida. There's a huge convention center there. So conventions are a great place to get started. And then that graduated into the world of pageantry. I competed in Miss America in 2010. And then that went into a whole decade of touring with various brands, commercial work. I was more on the commercial print spokesmodeling side of life and dabbled in fashion. And it just was an incredible, incredible journey. I use my skill set every single day. I still get the opportunity to model at times, although during COVID and quarantine, it's been a little bit sparse, right? But it's just been an incredible adventure. So I'm really excited to dive in with you tonight.
Great. I'm really excited to just elaborate on opportunities that models can obtain, because you kind of nailed it with quarantine and COVID. And we've been locked in our homes for 2 years. So it's almost like the transition from the screen into the real world again. And a lot of models are actually struggling with that more than I actually thought they would. And one of the biggest things between what I've noticed in the industry as myself as a model, teaching my clients and everything, is learning how to obtain those opportunities and create those sustainable opportunities. So you can actually, start growing in the industry as a model and have those opportunities that will push your career forward and to start making you money. Because I know the market in Canada is very different than what it is in the States, because what happens here in Canada for the most part is you're scouted, you're trained, you're branded, and then you're shipped out. Because the markets apart from Canada are just, they're stronger. There's way more opportunity. So for models to obtain that opportunity, especially in Canada, can be very, very challenging if they don't have the resources to do that. So when you first got started as a model, how did you, like, were you signed right away? Did you ever sign, or was it something where you just, you took the bull by the horns and you created your own opportunities? Because you can do both. And some models feel like they need an agency to get those opportunities, which you can. But at the same time, as a freelance model, you can subject yourself to so many opportunities as well. But, there's always a barrier that's created a little bit, because some opportunities that we want to obtain, you need an agency to do that. So there's a little bit of give, and there's there's a little bit of give in both situations. So I'm just curious how you did it, and then I'll kind of add on to that as you go.
Yeah, I like that you bring this up, because it really is like someone says, I mean, I've had in my current life say to me, well, we want to get our kids into modeling, so where do we begin? And it's like
I get that all the time.
right, exactly. And to be honest, I didn't start when I was a child, so I really am not I wouldn't say like I have the plan all laid out for somebody to tell them how to get their child into the industry. However, I'll go back to what my experience was. I like I said, I jumped into pageantry from what I would call very like minor modeling in the convention and hair shows and that type of thing. I was working with L'Oreal and just doing local stuff. And then I jumped into pageantry. And so very similarly to like the work that you do, pageantry was like this incubator for me to develop a skill set, to not be afraid to walk into any room and just feel like you belong there. And public speaking, knowing who you are, what you stand for, and having a vision for where you're headed is all something that we can work with our children on. I mean, that's a skill set that's going to serve them whether they stay in the modeling industry for the rest of their lives or not, but that has served me well. But I guess the description that you said second was I grabbed it by the horns and I just made my own opportunities, because I sort of leapfrogged from one thing to the next. So when I finished with it didn't finish, but while I was in the pageant world, I started to hear about this opportunity to be a product specialist and tour with Lexus. And so I figured out, okay, well then what's the audition process for that? I just asked a lot of questions, and that led me to the agency that sends models all over the world for BMW, Rolls-Royce, Ford, Toyota, Lexus, Mercedes, you name it. There's an agency that brings on models, then forms teams for all of these different manufacturers, and then you are the face of their brand for that calendar year. And then you can renew your contract over and over and over again. And so that was really, I would say, like a big foundation for me in the modeling industry. But really just by asking questions, by figuring out who do I need to talk to next? Okay, now do I need to record a video? Like, what is the audition process? And then asking other people who were already where I wanted to be, how they got to that position. So I was asking other women that I knew in the pageant world who had then segued into being a product specialist for a manufacturer. Okay, what agency did you talk to? And where do I need to send my video? And who do I need to speak to at the agency? But again, the pageantry foundation really served me in that I wasn't afraid to call the agency on the phone. They're just people behind, like not just people, but they're people at the office where they work. Like I remember way back being terrified to get on the phone with an agent, because I felt like already inferior, or that I wasn't doing something right, or I was going to say the wrong words on the phone. And so I think just one of my main messages is like, just be yourself, really, truly. We're all human. We're all navigating it together. And your curiosity and your interest is not something that's unique, or your lack of knowledge in that way is not something to be frowned upon. But how else are you going to learn if you don't just start asking questions? You have to start somewhere. So yeah, I grabbed it by the bullhorns and I made opportunities for myself, for sure.
And you nailed it on the head when you said that, because when you said not to be afraid and create opportunities for yourself, I was like, yes, because that's what I think a lot of our models today forget about, that they don't think that they have the ability or even the opportunity or the option just to create opportunities for themselves, because we've been conditioned for so long to follow the rules and to do this and to do that. And I had someone last week say, well, isn't that breaking the rules? I'm like, breaking the rules, honey, I'm just making new ones. And you have to have that type of drive in you to create those new rules, not from a disrespectful standpoint, but to motivate yourself, to push yourself forward into an industry that is so hard to make it in. But let me tell you, if you make it, it's all worth it in the end. And there's ways to do it and there's ways not to do it. And one of the aspects that you nailed on the head too was networking. And one of the biggest things that I teach to my clients and stuff like that, and what I had to teach myself and what my mentors would teach me, is literally the art of networking. And networking is actually extremely hard if you do it right, because you don't want to just network with just anybody, right? You want to strategically network with people that are going to help you, are going to teach you, push you to the next level. But again, models don't know if that's available. They don't know if they're able to participate in those type of things. And I actually taught this aspect today, and I wanted to make sure that I remembered it. And it's actually the aspect of fear and how it can cripple you in the snap of a finger. And people don't realize how much fear actually has an effect on you. And I learned this a bit ago, but the 5 W's, like who, what, when, where, and why, right? We're always worried about the how before everything else. So I want to make it to an agency, or I want to be a really successful model. How do I do that? That's usually the first question that enters a human mind. How do I do it? And once you're thinking about all the hows, you're forgetting about the 5 W's of who, what, when, where, and why, when you should be answering those questions first before you even hit the how. Because
I love that. Yeah.
Because if you ask your questions with how do I do this? How do I do that? Oh my God, I don't know if I do this. Like, you're instantly twisting your confidence. You're twisting all the options that you could potentially create for yourself. And you almost put yourself into a tizzy. You would just go, oh shit. Oh, sorry. Sorry. I don't mean to swear, but you're just like, you just put yourself into this mindset where you're constantly asking yourself how, that you create fear because you don't know how to do it.
Totally.
So if you take a step back and you're like, okay, who do I speak to? What do I have to do? Why do I want to do it? And so on and so forth. You're answering those questions along the way to the point where you reach, oh, that's how I do it.
Something to take away here for the listeners and people tuning in is to take that a step further is when it comes to networking, it really shouldn't, if you're viewing it as, I don't want to just be doing it for the sake of how to get ahead, and I don't just want to do it for the sake of like how it's going to benefit me, then you are in it for the wrong reasons. Truly, something that I've learned is, and that's why I keep saying, like, we're all like, I think more than anything, quarantine and this last 2 years has showed us like the human side of life. And we're all been like putting up this facade in some ways of like, we don't have actual like homes with like something weird in the background that doesn't really belong there, right? It's like we've all had to be on these calls and all of a sudden you're like worried about like what's in the background when really everybody has life going on. So it's fine. I tell my husband that all the time because there's times where, I don't know, the dog will like run upstairs and he's on a call and he's like, I was on a very important call with a very important client. And I'm like, so is it a detrimental effect to their decision to work with you that you have a dog? Like, you're allowed to have life. And so in that respect, what I'm saying is when it comes to networking, the people in the industry are people. And so it's okay with the right respect and being very tactful about it to get to know them. Like who, what, when, where, and why also refers to, in my opinion, like getting to know them. What is their first and last name? And how did they get to where they are? And get interested in the people that are in the room where you find yourself. Say you get invited to a art exhibit or a cocktail party that has to do with the industry, then you're going to mingle around and get interested in people, genuinely find out about them, and you will learn so much more than you ever thought. When you go home that night, you can start like recounting the conversations. You're going to realize the journey that all of those different people have been on in their lives, and you're going to take away from that conversation that you had with that person, like a way that it can help you. And you just never know where somebody you meet at some event is going to show up at a different event, but you already have a connection now because that person remembers you because you were so cordial and you were so interested in their life. And all of a sudden now you're making your mark. And it's that incremental change and growth over time that then stacks into becoming somebody that's known, or you show up for an audition and you already know somebody sitting behind the table, or whatever the case may be. It's not a matter of like, oh, you have an in because you I don't know, a family friend or something. It's because you genuinely started a conversation with that person at the last event you were at and you have rapport with them. There's nothing wrong with that. And that's, to me, like that further side of networking and building a name for yourself, and just really, really getting involved, getting interested, finding out. Like, I'm so curious with people. I want to know everything about, as much as they'll tell me about their life.
And it's true, because like you nailed it on the head. Like, there's like the art to networking, and again, it's making yourself memorable as a model and as a brand, because you're a brand, whether you are signed with an agency or not. You're a brand. And as they say, word in the industry travels fast, and it does. So if you're a pleasant person, if you're a pleasant model to work with, you're respectful, you want to learn about them, and you have a good time, people do remember that. And it's amazing how simple it is to just enjoy yourself and just be in the moment. And that's what I say, you always have to be in the moment. And when you are a model on set, you are assigned to an agency, or you're not, or you're doing a TFP, which means time for print, where you exchange time for photos and stuff like that. If you're new into the industry and you're building your portfolio, that's literally a conversation itself, but that's what it means. But when you are just a pleasant model or person to work with, and you are business savvy and you present yourself in such a positive manner, people will want to continue to work with you. It's that simple, but if you're hard to work with, you're demanding, you ask too many questions to the point where you're, almost annoying, because it can get to that level if it's not asked in a respectful way, if that makes any sense. People remember that. And it's just like, simple of, if someone holds the door for you and it made your day, you remember that. Same thing in the industry. And I've been saying this for since stuff has opened up a little bit more. We've had 2 years to reevaluate a lot in our lives, whether it's personal, career, so on and so forth. But same thing goes for the fashion industry. Like, I had a great chat with Elle Education a few weeks ago when we were speaking about specific things when it comes to the Canadian platform of understanding fashion, having it grow, and so on and so forth. But we've been given a platform. We've been almost given a platform to start over in a way, or to enhance what we've already started. And the only people who have control to do it is us. And if we don't take that step forward, and if we don't, take the time to understand the industry on how to push it to the next level, it's just going to stay stagnant, and it's going to be the same thing over and over again. And you're not going to see any growth. So during the pandemic, when all of this was happening, I literally sat back on my couch right here, staring at the window. I live right on the water, so I'm just looking at boats go by and saying, how am I going to make this industry better? How am I going to do it? And then just stuff started, turning, and all of a sudden I build a business, and I start helping models within the industry. And, it's such a rewarding thing, because I didn't have a me when I got into the industry. You didn't have a you or a me when you got into the industry. Like, we had to figure it out for ourselves. And I don't know about you, but it was not easy for me. Like, I will be very straightforward, authentic. I struggled a lot. Like, my parents saw the worst, because I got screwed over so many times. I was stolen from. I was put in uncomfortable situations. I was told one thing but promised the other. Like, it's a constant struggle. Like, struggle was my middle name at one point, because I didn't have any opportunity, and I didn't know how to get it. So I had to pretty much break myself down and build myself back up again, so I could understand how to do it. And now that I know how, I want to be that person that I couldn't be before I got into an industry like this. And I want to help people, just like what you're doing too, Rach, with all of your stuff, like changing lives and adding that extra, that extra service. You want to overserve at this point, because, just for the aspect and the fact of not having it yourself just makes you want to do it even more.
Well, yes, exactly. And I think there's there's things have shifted in a positive way. I always say there's a really positive side to the internet, and then there's also the negative side. And it's depending on which lens you look through and how you choose to view it. Same with social media. But social media and the internet can be a tool for good if it's used that way. And the way that it can be used as a tool for good is that I think that you can now tune into people that you admire in the industry's lives, and through social media and how much they're willing to share, you're able to see that that person also, like you just said, like, I'm going to be authentic, I struggled, like they had a journey, they had ups and downs. And that when you're looking at somebody on the cover of a magazine, or they're walking in a very high profile show, or they're the face of I don't know, Toyota or something on a commercial, and you're thinking like, that person is so far above me, I could never get to where they are. I think those kinds of thoughts and that type of thinking is antiquated at this point, because now you can go search out, okay, who's the new face of Toyota? Then you can go find that person on Instagram. We all know how to do this. And then you go see that they have a regular profile and a regular life, and they have things going on that aren't always so perfect. And so for me, that shows me that, like, okay, that means I'm not so different from these people. That means that it's figure outable. Like, I know that's not a real world word, but Marie Forleo always says it, and I love her. And
you just gave it life. It's fine.
Everything is figure outable. And it's also okay to have downsides to it, and to feel like, okay, that feels like a setback, but that just means I'm getting somewhere. That feels like a failure, but that just means more information. That just means more ways not to do it, versus feeling so defeated. Like when I was just getting started and you were just getting started, like there wasn't that type of online presence to be able to tune into and compare ourselves to in a good way, right? So I always bring that up, that you know, for parents who have children that are wanting to be in the industry, or you have a teenager in the industry that are, you know, really have their sights set on being an actor in Hollywood or something, there is a lot of positive to that side of our world now, as long as it's used as a force for good. And I think so much has been done in the way of these anti-bullying campaigns, and authenticity and vulnerability, and just sharing your truth in the same way that you share your successes, because a lot of people will compare their page 1 to your page 37, and then they'll just talk themselves out of it. And there's so much to be said for looking into somebody's entire journey and understanding that there were times when they also were crying on their bedroom floor, wondering like how they were ever going to recover from such a big, I don't know, a big letdown, or a big rejection, or feeling like they weren't good enough, you know? And I just encourage now parents to encourage their children to use it as a force for good in that way too, because there really can be such a positive movement online and on social media, and ways for them to connect and share and be able to be vulnerable with one another.
Yeah, again, like so wonderfully said, because there are so many positives to this industry, and the key is to just stay on that track of positivity. And I'm not saying you're not going to have a bad day, like you just said, crying on the floor, or a massive rejection, but like you were saying throughout that is just, I really keyed on this point that you said, a no is a learning curve. And it's a big learning curve. And this is one of the things that I teach a lot, but it took me a while to learn. Like it took me a while, because a lot of people think no is a negative. As soon as you hear no, okay, well, that sucks. No, right? And you automatically just shut down. You're like, well, I was redirected. I was told, no, I'm not good enough. And I'm just like, actually, no. No, you are good enough. That no is just pointing you in a different direction to where you're supposed to be. Number one, we're in the industry of no. That's just, it comes with the territory, right? So you have to have that thick skin, right? And you have to be okay with hearing no, but then understanding what that no really means. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely does. Of course. And I think that there's some tools here that somebody could take away when they do. What are some things for you that you've learned that when you have those rejections and you do need to have a moment where you feel like I really wanted that job or that opportunity or that shoot, what are some ways, and then I'll share so that they have a takeaway, like that you have learned to talk yourself through it mindset wise, or like, how do you pick yourself back up again? Or what is the quick way to, snap back?
Snap out of it. In the beginning, it was just a matter of understanding why I was told no. Because, us, we go in it, we're like, yeah, we got this. We're good. We walk out, we think we have it. And then we don't hear anything back. We're like, what? Why? I nailed it. I did such a good job. Why the heck did they tell me no? Like, you get frustrated. You're like, okay, well, nah. Right. So when I started hearing no more and more, I was like, okay, do I actually suck? Or is there a reason why I'm being told no? And, because once you get that one yes, you're back on that high again. And you're like, okay, I'm cool. I'm a queen. I'm a king. I got this. Like, so it feeds your ego in very unique ways. And you have to be able to handle that ego when you're told yes and then when you're told no. So ways that I handled the no was just understanding that, okay, if I was told no, then I just wasn't right for that part. I just wasn't right for it. Or there was somebody better than me. Right. And then that's where I'm like, okay, what did I do wrong and how can I get better at it? But one of the things that we don't have access to as much anymore is that we don't really get the feedback, right? Because, we live in such a fast-paced industry, and like we have in a very sensitive industry at the same time. So sometimes people are almost too afraid to give that feedback because they don't want to offend anybody. And I'm not saying that's a bad thing, but I think models can really benefit from getting feedback when they don't get the part or the fashion show or the photo shoot, so they can learn how to be better. So what I teach and how I've taught myself too is when you don't get that feedback, it's almost replaying the audition in your head and going, okay, did I really do okay? Or maybe could I have enhanced a little bit better? Or did I do my best and just, I was just told no. And at that point, if you did your best and you were told no, then you just weren't ready for the part, or they found somebody else. But you have to remember, when you go to an audition, photo shoot, all that kind of stuff, and you're trying to land something, it's just not one person's opinion. You're going through so many different tiers all the way to the top to get chosen. You're going through the people who are doing the audition, you're going through the directors, you're going through the bunch of staff on board for that. Then you have to go all the way to the top to the people who are actually running the show and the brand to get the overall agreeing or not, right? So people have different opinions along that way. If you're a yes all the way to the top, then yeah, you get the part. But if you're not a yes all the way to the top, then that's when things get, a little bit complicated to, do you get the part or do you not get the part? So it's not the aspect of, no, you're not good enough. It's just, did everybody think that you were fit for it? I feel like I rambled on a little bit, but there's so many different aspects of understanding on why you get the part and why you don't get the part.
Yeah.
But that's kind of how I learned to understand that it's not just the aspect of no. There's just so many moving parts with anything.
Yeah. Yeah. It's important to reframe things, and to just like have the resiliency. I would say something that a lot of people need to work on is their resiliency and their grit, their grittiness. There's a great scientist by the name of Angela Duckworth who wrote a book literally called Grit. And I think that most people, all of us, could use more grit. But if you don't really read the book and understand, you can even just Google her work. But what is grit? Like, how can somebody become more gritty? And that is the whole, if you get knocked down 7, you get up 8, and not taking anything personally, and reflecting and then moving on quickly. Just deciding that you're going to keep going, deciding that you're not going to quit. Just decide you're in it for life and you're just not going to quit. The only way to fail at this truly is to quit, right?
That's very true. If you quit, then you're done. But resiliency is a big word. And the other thing is discipline. Mm-hmm. If you don't have the discipline to fall down 7 times, get up 8, then maybe it's not the right industry for you, because you have to get used to the aspect of constant grind, constant discipline, constant resiliency, constant eat, breathe, sleep, cry, fashion, modeling, whatever. Because if you want to be that good, you have to eat and breathe it. That's just how it is. And every model has a different direction. Every pageant girl has a different direction, right? And it's the direction that you create for yourself. And a lot of the times it turns out to be something that you didn't even think it was going to be in the first place. In fact, it's even better. right? And it's leaving yourself open to those opportunities. And that's another thing, speaking of the word opportunities, that a lot of models gain from and struggle with at the same time. Because when a model is given an opportunity, right, whether it's paid, not paid, gonna boost their career, not boost their career, they're afraid to say no. And, you know, sometimes an opportunity just really isn't for you, but you do it anyway because you're scared you're not going to get an opportunity again. And I have a lot of the models that I educate take a step back, and I'm like, listen, when you get an opportunity, evaluate it, right? If it's going to push your career forward, if it's going to give you an opportunity that will help you, then do it. But if it's an opportunity that's going to waste your time, or you're not sure about, or maybe affect you in however way, because there's many opportunities, then maybe reevaluate it. And don't be afraid of saying no, standing up for yourself, having dignity, because I promise you, if you turn down an opportunity, you're gonna get another one. That's just how the world works.
That's a great perspective. Yep. Abundance mindset, right?
You have to have that abundance mindset, because if you think that you turned down an opportunity and you thought that's the only opportunity you're going to have, then you're not really off to a good start. And when it comes to a model being paid and not paid from an opportunity standpoint, let's say an opportunity was worth more than the pay, right? Let's say this opportunity, you're just like, you know what, this will help push my career forward, but they don't pay what I want, or they don't pay enough. If you truly believe in your heart that that's going to push your career forward, do it. Like, I'm like, why would you stop yourself from that, right? But then if you get an opportunity where you're just not sure, then just relax, think it through, and try it. And if you try and it turns out to be not what you thought, oh well, next. Like,
exactly.
Try again.
Exactly. Yeah, we've all had our next moments for sure.
Oh God, I've had so many next moments. Like, you know, the thank you next, literally my theme song.
You guys There's some questions in the chat, Maddison. Do we want to?
Oh, there are. Sorry, I'm so in depth with our chat. I'm sorry, guys.
No, you guys were doing great. I'm going to read the questions. I just wanted to thank you both so much. This has been, I mean, you know a little bit. I've been trying and, you know, modeled a little bit over the course of 7 years. And so it's this has been a really great learning opportunity and experience just personally for myself. I will say that. I will remind everybody, if you want to leave questions in the chat, we're going to start reading them now. And if you are comfortable unmuting yourself, feel free to use the raise hands feature, and then we will throw that to you. But I will start reading some of them. So the first one we received, and I know that you mentioned this could be a whole other episode, and maybe we'll need to bring you both back on. But Juliana wants to know how you start a portfolio.
You want to go first?
Do you want me to go? Okay, sure. I can do this one. Thank you. It was Juliet. Yes. Thank you for your question. So starting a portfolio is actually really exciting, because that's kind of when you hit the ground running. So I'm not sure if you're an agency represented model or a freelance model, but to start a portfolio, you just simply start taking pictures, having photo shoots. Now, the key is understanding what type of photos that you need, finding a good photographer that you're comfortable with and that you can communicate with, because a lot of the times when we're shooting, it's very important to have, a good communication, a good connection with a photographer, so you can get the imagery that you're looking for. So whether you know a photographer in the industry that you can connect with to do, some time for print, or also known as TFP, or if you want to research on Google to see some photographers that are in your area. And if you really need extra help, you can reach out to me and I can help you find photographers that will get you the photos that you need to kind of start your portfolio. I could literally talk about how to start a portfolio for like a straight hour, because there's so much that goes into it. But to answer it very, very quickly, it's to just start researching the photographers in your area and see what type of photography that they do. Does it fit what you're looking for? What are their rates? You always want to see what their rates are. And does it fit with what you're looking for? I hope that kind of answers your question. But
I would just add that I think there's this sometimes perceived notion that they need to have this very full and vast portfolio before they can get started. And I think that they can get started with a shoot, if not a couple of shoots. And so I think it can be overwhelming sometimes at first. A new model might think that they need to have this huge book before they can even start. And so you can maybe just elaborate on that just a little bit. But when what an agency might be looking for is 4 really good shots versus like 16 inside of a book, like of just mediocre shots.
100%. I'm really glad you said that, because when it comes down to that kind of stuff, it's always quality over quantity. And I literally have that on repeat, because in today's day and age, and like, take this generally, you could take a selfie of yourself and send it to an agency. And if they like your look, they'll sign you on the spot, just like that. It's happened. But having said that, as soon as you sign with them, you're going to be building your portfolio regardless, right? So it's always good to start building a portfolio before you reach out to an agency, just to kind of get your feet wet, to get practice, to get comfortable behind a camera, because a camera can actually be very intimidating, believe it or not. When I first got into the industry, you just see something staring at you and you're like, oh man, what's that? And so it catches you in so many different moments. So don't take it with a grain of salt where you can just send yourself send a selfie to an agency and you're signed. That's not what I mean, but it's happened. And it's just giving you 2 different perspectives where, if you want to take the time and to build a portfolio in the beginning, you can do that. And, when it comes to quality over quantity, like Rachael said, you don't need 16 photos to apply to an agency. You don't. Like, if you have 1 to 2, maybe 3 photo shoots to kind of get your foot in the door, that's way better than like exhausting yourself and having a full book, right? Agencies just want to see who you are. And when it comes to the style of the photo, they just want to see you. They don't want to see pounds of makeup on your face. They don't want to see you non-authentic. They just want to see you in the raw, who you are as a human being. Because as a model, you're almost like a canvas. You're a canvas where agents and clients, they want to see what they can do. They want to get inspired by your look, right? So just take photos of you and have a photographer enhance the beauty that you already have. I hope I'm nailing it for how you said it, Rachael, and then how the question was answered, because there's so much that goes into building a portfolio, like so much.
Thank you so much. You guys explained it very well. And I love how
Okay,
you
good.
mentioned that you only need a few versus like 16. That's very helpful information. So thank you so much.
You're
It's been a
welcome.
pleasure
Glad we could help.
It does segue to the next question quite great too, because Chelsea was wondering what the best ways to attract an agency are. They recognize that they have a unique look and they're trying to like promote the fact that they could diversify rosters for different people. So what's the best way to attract an agency?
I think that Maddison and I we have similar perspectives on this. However, I tend to, at this stage in my life, I'm 35, and I am more on the coaching mindset side of life. And to me, you really, and this is something we didn't get to dive into tonight, and so maybe it's also another conversation, but when you're branding yourself, you want to think about how you are your own brand, and you are working to become magnetic because you want people to want to work with you versus you having to go after them, right? So to me, that question, Chelsea, and I know you didn't mean to word it this way, but it's just a little bit of like a scarcity mindset, thinking like, what's the best way that I can attract an agency, and only because there's only a few out there that may want to work with me, right? Versus thinking like, I know who I am. I know what I have to offer. It's a matter of me finding the right agency that's going to work for me, because they're actually working for you. You don't work for the agency. You're not an employee of the agency.
Thank you.
And so you're saying, I love that you also added, you recognize that you have a unique look and you want to get out there and diversify their portfolio. So it's a matter of you saying, well, am I a fit for, like, do I feel like you guys are going to represent me correctly versus I'm so desperate for an agency to think that I'm worthy or good enough that I need to attract. So that mindset already puts you in a state of lack versus thinking like, I have everything it takes. I know that I have a unique look. It's a matter of you getting out there and practicing, getting in front of the camera, being comfortable. How do you move in front of the camera? And then also, oh gosh, I just lost my train of thought. And then and just being your authentic self. So that comes with personal development, and that's where the mindset piece comes in. That's where I love diving into who are you and what do you really want? Like, what's your vision for your career? Because you don't need to speak that out loud to everybody you come into contact with in the industry, but it's an energy that you project when you walk in the room, because there's a difference between somebody who knows where they're going and somebody who wants other people to tell them where to go.
100%. And that energy, I always find, has a beautiful word called charisma. And when you bring charisma into a room, the whole room changes, the whole room stops, and the whole room knows that you've entered. And just echoing what you said, agencies now are looking for brands. Agencies are looking for people to take to the next level, because you have to remember, agencies themselves are a brand. They are, and they're bringing models on board to support their brand, yet build their own brand as well. Right? So you're almost collaborating together. And if you go in, like Rachael said, always worried about what you lack, agents are going to recognize that so fast. Because you have to remember, from like a mental, energetic standpoint, we are energy. Human beings are energy, and we can read that, we can feel that, right? So if you go into a casting or an interview and you walk tall, because there's actually a stat, believe it or not, you know, like the Superman pose, right? If you stand in the Superman pose for 25 seconds, your confidence builds by at least 50%, at least. Because when you are open up like this, it opens up your heart, it opens up your chest, it opens up your mind, and it's a confident pose. It builds this confidence in you subconsciously, right? I'm not saying walk into an agency room and be like, I'm here. But it's to set yourself up for, you know, walking in confidently and having that energy follow you, and people will feed off that. They really, really will. But if you go in worried about everything you can't do, it's not going to be what you hope it's going to be.
I will point out that Chelsea did say, love this, and thank you, Rachael. So that's awesome that we're getting the answers and the feedback that people want. And Rachael also did add a resource at the bottom that it's Amy Cuddy's TED Talk on power poses, which I had heard about as well as a young girl in high school. And that definitely, changes the mind and the way you think about walking into a room and your energy. Dee, I see that your hand is raised.
Hi, this is a question for both Maddison and Rachael. From a coaching perspective, have either of you noticed a shift in the industry with both recruiters and, designers looking for models who are more than just, I'm trying to word this the best I can, but are more than just a pretty face and maybe have their own brand? Like you talked about how agencies have a brand. And one of the things that I'm noticing is, as a designer myself, when I'm looking to work with models, I'm looking for their look, absolutely, and the brand in that sense, but I'm also looking to see their social media following and the influence that they have. So I'm kind of getting more bang for my buck. So is that a trend that's happening, or are people still really focused all about the look?
I personally think it's both. But at the same time, it depends what you're looking for from a designer or an owner standpoint. So if you were to, to work with a model and this is just my personal take on what I've seen, I'm sure there's way more to add to what I'm about to say. But, if you're a designer looking for a specific model to, enhance your brand, you already know in your head what you want, right? So you're going to be, checking off the boxes as you find your model. Same thing from an agency standpoint, because at the end of the day, models have to understand that modeling agencies, it's a business. And, the clout's fun, the photos are fun, the photo shoots are fun, the runways are fun, the attention's fun. But at the end of the day, this is a business, right? So people are going to be looking how you carry yourself. People are going to be looking at your Instagram. People are going to be looking, are you marketable? Because people want to make money. When you make money, the agent makes money, everybody's happy, the client's happy. So it's a snowball effect, in my opinion. But at the same time, I truly believe that most agencies and most designers and people who work with models want to work with authentic, good models that reflect their brand. I truly believe that. I'm not saying it's always like that, but I like to truly believe that that's what most, interactions are. I don't know if you want to add on that, Rachel, or anything like that.
I agree with you on this one. I do believe it's both. I think it also depends on what the job is. So is it a local fashion week that we're talking about? Or is this an opportunity for the designer to be on the cover of some magazine? Then usually the model's name and who the model is not as much of a feature as when they're in the reel that you're making on Instagram, or in the commercial that you're getting ready to produce, or if you're having the brand endorse you on their social media, then yeah, I mean, those are definitely factors that play into it. So I think there's still room for both as of now, but maybe in 10, 15, 20 years, I do see a trend happening in the way of influencer marketing, and brands are definitely using their marketing dollars towards those who have influence, like you said. So yeah, I think it's more like a stay tuned there, but I do think there's still a market for the high fashion industry. And you know, it's interesting. It's another talk for another time too, is that those jobs that are the most coveted, or the ones that you think are the ones that the model is getting paid the highest dollars for, are usually the ones he or she has to do pro bono in order to build their resume or their portfolios, i.e. Fashion New York Fashion Week, the cover of Vogue, surprisingly enough. Like if you're a model, they look at it as like, we're doing you a favor, so we don't have to pay very much.
And that's oh my God, you just nailed that on the head. That's huge, because sometimes all this pro bono work, thinking that they're doing you a favor, you as the model, as the business person, have to sit back and say, okay, is this favor going to push me forward, or is this favor going to waste my time? And that takes some strategic breakdowns every once in a while. If it's Vogue, I mean, that's a pretty easy answer, but you never know. Someone could approach you on the street and you have no idea who the heck they are, but they're offering you an opportunity. And that goes back to the opportunity conversation. Is the opportunity worth my time? Is it worth the money? What is it worth? And that's what you have to break down as a model. If you say yes, 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 yes to everything, I mean, if they're good opportunities for you, awesome. But what if it's an opportunity that wastes your time, wastes your money, wastes your space, wastes your energy, right? So it's not a straight answer, in my opinion. There's so many things to add on to that. I don't think I could answer that question straight because there's so many moving parts.
I'm going to throw two questions at you. One that is, I think, the last one in our chat, and then one that I have, and they do sort of go hand in hand. So Lua is wondering, how does one find enough castings without an agent? They've booked some themselves a few times. I feel like they could audition more, and they've used Instagram so far. And in that opportunities conversation, I was also wondering if it's possible to highlight the differences in those opportunities and finding castings between Canada and America, and how that's different, and then what best approaches are.
I'm going to let you run with this, and I'll see if there's something I can add, Maddie, because I feel like your hands are much more ingrained in that aspect of the world right now, more than mine.
Yeah, and that's fine. I'm more than happy to take that. When you're looking for more opportunities as a freelance model, because what a lot of, it's not that I keep it quiet, but what models forget sometimes, they see what I do now, but I went from a signed model to a freelance model for 3 years, to a signed model again. And, sometimes I think people underestimate freelance models, and you can really do a lot as a freelance. So to answer your question, when you're looking for more opportunity, networking, huge. You want to just find those networking opportunities. And Lou, I know you're from New York, and, for one, FGI is a great way to network. If they have events and stuff like that, or you want to go and check out these type of organizations and these type of networking opportunities, because they connect you to people in the industry that could help you move forward. If you're looking for opportunities with, it's good to sometimes look in Facebook groups, and sometimes it's just making yourself, open to more opportunity. Now, it's not going to happen overnight, right? These networking and these opportunities are going to come in time, but when you open those opportunities to more photo shoots, you get to start to know people, right? And it just builds from there. Being in the industry for under a year, you haven't really met everyone you need to know yet, but you're going to continue to meet people, and that's how it is. And it goes back to what Rachael said in the very beginning: be that memorable person, you know, have a conversation with somebody, and creating those opportunities for yourself will happen quicker than you think. But if you're just on the aspect of looking for opportunities, model groups, Facebook, Instagram, you're already doing from what I saw in the chat, and just being a businesswoman, put yourself out there, see what's out there, and just kind of take things from there. Does that kind of answer your question?
Yeah, it does. Thank you.
You're welcome. And I just noticed, oh, sorry, go ahead.
I'll add one thing there, that every opportunity that you do take and that is a positive in your life, then when you're there, you're starting to think, like, get your wheels turning and just think, okay, well, who here do I just need to make sure that I'm in contact with, whether it's on Facebook or social or Instagram, so that I can see what they're up to in their lives, and therefore I can make a jump to the next thing. The other thing, again, mindset here, is make your intentions known before you leave, before you walk out of that job or that set. And that is not to be like, be tactful, of course, and professional and respectful. It has been so amazing working with all of you. I would love the opportunity again if that arises. Thank you all so much. Have a wonderful day. If you just leave and you're like, you don't say a word, you're like a little mouse, then you're forgettable. So definitely just, you're a brand, like own it, like look at them in the eye, thank every single person there. I used to bring thank you notes with me in my bag, and I would write a thank you note to every single person on set. And then I would put it at the makeup chair. I would put it at the hair station. I would put it at the photographer's area, and I would just leave it there. You know, it's just, you just never know the power of leaving your impact like that.
Yeah, that's the key to be memorable. Just
okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
One more question in the chat. I've noticed slightly more diversity in models featured in campaigns or live on air, i.e. race, age, size, inclusivity. How do we find agencies, agents with a broader perspective of beauty? Do you think that this is a trend or a reflection of the public demand to see themselves in the brands that they support?
Very good question. Rachael, do you want me to go first, or do you want to go first?
First of all, I think it's a beautiful thing happening. I also don't know that it's the agencies driving that decision as much as it is the brand. So it's sort of like you asked a twofold question there. I don't think it's the agencies and the agents that are saying like, hey, let's change up the industry and look for a whole different range of look here. I think it's what the brands are demanding because they're responding to the market. And I personally think it's a beautiful thing happening in our world. I call lots of things movements. You'll notice that's one of my favorite words, but there's a movement happening in regard to just like that we're all human, that everybody has flaws. Like, I love the fact that, I don't know if you all have Aerie up there. It's a brand off of American Eagle, but they show the dimples in the legs, and they promise that they don't touch up a lot of photos. And I've noticed that a lot of brands are doing that. And it's just, to me, that's beautiful. And I think that that's so wonderful. So I think that that's the market demanding it. And they want to see that from the brands that they support, because the market and consumers are the ones that are keeping those brands in business with their dollars. So
yeah, it's the aspect of being relatable. And for the longest time, there was such a separation between a model and, you know, the public being relatable to the brand that the model is modeling for. And until we had those movements and stuff like that, it was very, very hard. Like, I don't know if anybody knows about the Victoria's Secret movement and stuff like that. Like, I personally loved the show, but I looked at it from like a modeling standpoint and stuff like that. But a lot of people found the Victoria's Secret fashion show hard because, you know, they couldn't look like someone like that. And, you know, you don't want to go into a store and then, you know, compare yourself to someone that you know is like unattainable, right? That's not fair, right? And being able to, you know, have a brand where you can feel relatable to and feel comfortable in your skin. A lot of people gravitated to that, and rightfully so. And I think it's like Rachael said, I think it's a beautiful thing, and I think it's long overdue, because, you know, everybody is beautiful in their own way. We are all blessed with our own unique features, and it needs to be celebrated. And finally, the industry is starting to do that. And you have to be mindful and you have to be realistic too. Some brands and some parts of the industry just aren't going to change. And that's okay. That's okay. Just some of them just won't change. But there's a lot that are changing. And it is beyond refreshing to see, because it's giving more opportunity and it's giving more confidence to people. And we have to be mindful of that. We live in a social media world now, and we're in the world of comparison. And we have to kind of take a step back from that and be like comfortable in our own skin and look at it, like look at ourselves in the mirror and be like, I am beautiful, I am handsome, I am capable. You know, we can't be comparing ourselves to someone in a picture that's probably more than likely been edited. Right? So it's just, you know, if anybody is struggling with that, you know, take a step back and love yourself first before you start comparing yourself to stuff on social media, because I'm telling you, 9 times out of 10, it's edited and it's not real.
100%. Very accurate. I wanted to ask my one last question before we wrap up for the evening. I'm curious, Maddison, you mentioned, you know, being more than down and out on your luck and really struggling and all of these like horrible things that have happened to you at different periods. And as someone who has done time for print modeling in a small town, I've also had awful things happen to me. And other than knowing wonderful people in the industry like yourselves, what would you say to men, women, anyone who may experience something unfavorable, or how to overcome those obstacles that it might seem like are bound to happen because of what this industry is like? Maybe just some like very quick tips or tricks that might help them.
For me, is to process what happened. You know, even if you're gonna have ups and you're gonna have downs. That's just part of the industry. It's part of anything in life, right? So when I had my moments, I let myself go through them, and I felt the pain, I felt the disappointment, but I didn't suffer in it either. I learned what I did wrong, what I could have done better. Why did this situation happen? Right? And those type of situations, you have to almost break it down, right? Because when we're on a high and we have a very positive experience, we're on cloud 9, we're just riding the wave. But when something goes wrong, it stops us in our tracks. And there's 2 directions you can go in. You can go cry in the corner and let it eat you alive, or you can sit back, analyze what happened, learn from it, and make sure that it doesn't happen again. That's why making mistakes is actually a huge blessing, because they teach you to never let it happen again if you learn from it. And that's the key. And that's how I really thrived from my mistakes, believe it or not.
Well, Maddison and Rachael, we could listen to you go on forever, but I do want to be respectful of everyone's time. So on behalf of FGI and Hillary and I, we just want to thank both of you for taking the time to speak with us today. And for everyone who joined this interview, thank you so much for joining us. And make sure that you check your emails for the recorded version if you feel like you missed any key educational bits. And also make sure that you're following FGI Toronto on Instagram and are following our newsletter. And for those of you who maybe don't know what Fashion Group International is, it's a global nonprofit organization with 26 chapters led by a board of volunteer directors, and it has over 5,000 members. Its purpose is to provide value to its members through innovative programming, initiatives, mentorship programs, and immersive networking opportunities for fashion industry professionals. And as someone that's on the board this year, I can tell you the things that we have planned are out of this world amazing. We've already done some really great stuff. And we are going to be continuing this video interview series as well. So keep an eye out for new and upcoming topics. So thank you everyone for joining, and we will see you next time.